The streaming era has made music more accessible to a wider audience, allowing artists to reach more listeners than ever before. It has also made it easier for independent artists to distribute their music without the need of a record label. As the revenue generated by streaming is often much lower than generated by traditional album sales, it made it difficult for artists to make a living from their music. These days, the record labels have gained back control, as they control playlists and any mode of discovery, which led to the dominance of established artists in the streaming market and made it difficult for new and emerging artists to gain exposure and build a following. There was a time when albums were still experiences. The underground was thriving, and pop stars were still putting in effort to craft their sound. That year was 2016. It was a revolutionary year in music, from groundbreaking albums to meaningful movements that influenced the music industry for years to come. This year had it all. Albums released in 2016 were a force to be reckoned with. Artists like Beyoncé, Rihanna, and Frank Ocean delivered their best music, dropping their magnum opus. People usually list 1969, 1984, 1991, 1997, and 2001 as the greatest years for music. So, let's explore the year. To start the year, the icon David Bowie released his final album Black Star, as he passed 2 days later on January 10. He recorded the album while struggling with liver cancer. It was one of his best albums, with an average score of 87 out of 100 on Metacritic. It set the tone for the year. The first blockbuster release of the year was when Rihanna dropped her most defining album Anti on January 28. It is a 10 out of 10 album that has her best songs ever, like Kiss It Better and Love on the Brain. Rihanna took risks, experimented with her sound, and delivered an album that defied expectations. It was so good that she hasn't released a new album since. It has been 8 long years. The next monumental album released in 2016 was The Life of Pablo by Kanye West. The album has diverse production, and it went on a more gospel direction. It's all over the place, with no consistent sound. It's a great album though. It ranks in the upper half of his discography. And in April 23, Beyoncé released Lemonade. It's a concept album that tackles issues of infidelity, love, betrayal, and redemption. The production is amazing, with an eclectic mix of genres, including R&B, rock, and even country. It's a brilliant visual album, and is considered as Beyoncé's masterpiece. It's also her most critically acclaimed album, with a score of 92 out of 100 on Metacritic. It was also commercially successful, having been certified 3 times platinum by the RIAA. Just a week after Lemonade, Drake released his most successful album at the time, Views. It spent 13 weeks on number 1 on the Billboard 200, selling more than 1 million records in its first week. It showed Drake's versatility as he dabbled into the Afrobeat and dancehall genres. It was clowned at first, but the public perception has turned around on it. It is now usually mentioned as one of his best albums. On March 4, Kendrick dropped his untitled unmastered album with the leftovers from his last album. It did way better than most rappers' studio albums. It was also one of the most critically acclaimed albums of the year. The next groundbreaking release was by the man who was dubbed the next Drake. Coming off his feature on Ultralight Beam on Kanye's album, Chance the Rapper dropped his breakthrough mixtape Coloring Book on May 13. The mixtape made history when it became the first streaming-only project ever to win a Grammy. After this album/mixtape, Chance was touted as the future of rap. Yeah, that never came true, but still. We were also in the midst of a very unique time in rap, where the underground artists were racking up more numbers than the mainstream artists. This era was known as the SoundCloud era. The new generation all dropped their defining projects in 2016. Lil Uzi Vert with Lil Uzi Vert vs. the World, 21 Savage and Metro Boomin with Savage Mode, Lil Yachty with Lil Boat, and Kodak Black with Project Baby. Pop music had a great year as well, with Ariana Grande releasing her 3rd studio album Dangerous Woman on May 20. It showcased her growth as an artist and cemented her as one of the leading voices in pop music. And just a week later, Fifth Harmony released their 2nd studio album 727. It contains some of the group's biggest hits, like Work From Home and All In My Head Flex. It was also their last album as a 5-some, before Camilla left. In August, one of the best albums of the 2010s, Frank Ocean's Blonde, was released. Frank crafted an album that resonated on a deeply personal level with his listeners. It was exclusively released on Apple Music, as many of the major albums were at the time. It was the last year of streaming exclusives. It was a great year for male R&B, with amazing albums like Free Black and Trap Soul, which was released in 2015 but got popular in 2016. Beyoncé was dominating the year, but one of the most surprising projects came from her sister Solange, with the release of her album A Seat at the Table on September 30. It explores themes of race, identity, and resilience. It is a critically acclaimed album, with a score of 89 out of 100 on Metacritic. The male pop stars were holding their own as well, with the release of 24K Magic by Bruno Mars on November 18. It brought the smooth 80s sound back to relevance. The album is a celebration of funk, pop, R&B, and all-around good vibes. The Weeknd also released his full pop album Starboy on November 25. This album cemented him as a true starboy. Justin Bieber was also having a phenomenal year, as his singles From Purpose, Love Yourself, and Sorry were the first and second biggest songs of 2016. It was also a great year for weird artsy albums, like Joanne by Lady Gaga and Awaken My Love by Childish Gambino. It was a great year for rock too, with the release of albums like California by Blink-182, Revolution Radio by Green Day, and Metallica's Hardwired to Self-Destruct. The end of the year was amazing as well, with the release of albums like Stoney by Post Malone and For Your Eyes Only by J. Cole. The year ended with Adele's 25 being crowned as the best-selling album of 2016. It was a very special year, and I doubt it's ever going to be repeated again.